Music, it makes moments for all of us, right? The moment you first heard that song, the moment you saw them live, the moment you just knew. Music makes moments, but it's also made from moments. Moment You Made It is a show that seeks to find those moments for those artists, creators, and business professionals alike who make music into the moments that you remember. Moment You Made It is a podcast hosted by three creatives from the live music capital of the world. Director of the Texas Music Office, Brendan Anthony, singer-songwriter Fred Andrews, and executive director of the Austin Music Movement, Nick Shuley. Moment You Made It seeks to document the most compelling conversations with people that make those musical moments.
Hey guys, what's happening?
Sup?
Well, it's the Brendan and Nick show with Fred Andrews.
One of us got dressed for work today.
One of us did. One of us has been on webinars talking about COVID response to the music industry all afternoon. So that's been fun.
Nice.
Hey,
Sounds
welcome
like life.
to. Yeah, it sounds like life. Welcome to the Moment You Made It podcast. I'm Brendan Anthony. I'm joined, as
I'm
always,
Fred
by
Andrews.
Fred Andrews and Nick Shuley.
Nick Shuley.
It's good to see you guys. What's been happening?
I think Nick's mic's way better, don't you?
Does it still pick up if I'm back here? Do I have to like get the hard lean in?
I get a little closer.
Like that?
I think it's Nick's professional voice that picks up really well.
Welcome back.
It's the gator and the bear.
It's the moment you made it.
Is that what we're going for?
The moment you met it.
That's what we're going for.
That was
I think a
almost
professionally produced morning drive time show is what we should aspire to always.
Gosh, I wish we knew someone. I wish we knew someone that had this kind of experience and
skills.
Whose podcast wasn't already crushing ours by just metrics of 1,000.
Exactly. I'm delinquent in listening to your wife's podcast, Fred, but I've heard great things from a few people. I mean,
Ann's podcast is fantastic and everyone should listen to it.
It's
Just
called
tell her-
Ask Ann. Ask
tell
Ann.
her I've been listening.
Ann.
Tell her I've been listening.
She put up one yesterday, and it was like an hour in that after she put it up. She goes, "I go, how many people listen to your podcast?" She goes, "Oh, I think I have a couple thousand right now." I go, "You just released it an hour ago? A couple thousand listens?"
Well, Fred, it speaks to the power of audience. She's been working on that audience since before we could walk. So she's really good at what she does.
Not that old.
Oh gosh, I'm out. I don't want to be a part of this.
I know. No, she's crushing it.
She's
Don't
really
jump
great
on-
at what she does. It's pretty amazing.
Let's get on those tails and write it.
Yeah.
Get on that tail and write
I'm
it.
still waiting to get booked on there, but I've got to get a few more followers. I've heard that it requires posting on social media to get followers. So
Yeah, and reason. And reasons.
and people caring about me existing.
Yes.
Yeah, fair.
All right. So hey, guess what? We had a pretty awesome artist come talk to us. I want to talk about Roger Creager. What do y'all think?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Roger's an old friend of mine. We covered some of that in the episode. Roger's one of the all-around good guys in this business. He's really figured out what his brand is. He's really figured out what his audience wants from him. He writes incredible songs. He's a great co-writer, and he's kept a really stable, consistent, creative business going for 25 years now. And he got me through accounting in college. And the actual first show he ever played for money was in my dad's living room for one of the birthday parties that my dad threw. So, I came up meeting Roger when he came back to A&M, and he was playing open mics. And I just had the most fun getting to know the guy and playing these early shows with him. And it was really cool of him to come talk. He's just a super sharp guy. He just had a baby a couple of weeks ago, so he's a new dad too.
Wow. Didn't even know that.
Yeah. So, I don't think we covered much of that, but we definitely covered the songwriting and the having good times part of it. So,
Did he get do we ask him about Chris Ledoux? Because I mean his stage show, how he puts on a really dynamic stage show, Roger does. I learned a lot from him early on when I started first playing, do we ask, does he have some Chris Ledoux
Influences.
man, I think so many people do. I'm not sure if we touched on it. I know so many people do have that influence, and you can tell with like some of the guys he's partnered with on his his management group with Howie, Cody and Randall King. Like,
yeah,
Chris has influenced those guys, like he's influenced so many others. But Cody's new songs, or Dear Rodeo with Reba McEntire. So that Chris Ledoux influence runs through that entire management roster. I mean, that's for sure. That's a good point.
I know. It makes me. I should have thought about that.
I know. That's a great point. I know.
It's well known to Fred.
I should have asked that during the interview.
That's the game we should play on intros. Is I should have asked.
What?
Well,
yeah,
Fred, it's always nice to have you join the podcast. It's a thrill for all of us. Well, I had a great time talking to my old buddy Roger Creager. I hope y'all did too, and I hope the listener really likes it too. It's a fun talk, and Roger, in my opinion, has really got it figured out. I love watching his shows and love seeing him out on his boat and enjoying life. It's very cool.
yes, sir.
Let's do it.
About doing this is, I think, for the first, several dozen guests anyway, for the first several dozen people we talk to, we're going to have the kind of stories that only people who are kind of in the room would have, right? And not the really, uncomfortable, stupid stuff, but like how did you get on stage for the first time? And, some of us were nearby and around for some of those things. And I think it's important for people who are, interested in this scene, and so many people are, and, people who are interested in getting involved in it, to hear how hard it really is and how much time it really takes, and all the fun stuff and all the tough stuff that goes along with it. Fred and I and Nick in his own way have been around, the start of so many of these things at this point, that we can kind of just have these talks about what we remember about starting, coming up, and then how it's ended up. And that's kind of what we do on this thing. It's not, it's not the Wikipedia interview, it's just, what do you remember about this or that kind of thing. So you'll have all the answers, so I wouldn't stress too much. So okay. I was thinking the other day as your date on the calendar kind of came up, about how I ended up running into you. And it was for me, it was a really fun, like, series of events. It wasn't just a handshake, kind of met somewhere. I was playing around College Station and had just finished high school in College Station, and was getting obsessed, to probably put it mildly, with the country music scene, and then the original kind of independent country music stuff that was starting to happen again. Younger people like Jack Ingram writing their own songs, playing their own stuff, recording their own stuff, in a way that really spoke to me. And I kind of got obsessed with that. And I kind of started thinking that maybe I wanted to be involved in that, right? That's how you gravitate towards a scene. And I remember Jack played a show at the Stafford Opera House in Bryan, which was down in that sort of refurbished series of businesses and theaters downtown. And he had the band that had done like the Live at Adair's thing still. So he had a guy named Diamond Jim playing steel and fiddle with him. And I ended up wanting to go meet Jim. And so I went down there early to talk to him. And eventually Jim, in the middle of Jack's set, had to go out the back door to take a leak. That's exactly what happened. He was like, well, why don't you just get up and play while I'm gone? And so I did. Jack didn't know what was happening. But I got to play a couple songs with Jack, and Jack ended up picking me up and putting me on his shoulders and like walking me around the stage, which was kind of funny. But then I got off and I was like, I felt like a star, and I was walking through the crowd to go back towards the back, and a guy named Jeremy Elliott stopped me, and he said, hey man, that was really great. Did you work on that or what? And I said, no, it's spontaneous. He just kind of pulled me up, and Jeremy was like, I know this guy who just is moving back to town and starting to play out a little bit, and you should really connect with him. And he put me with you, and that started like a whole bunch of open mic night stuff. Do you remember all that?
Yeah, I do. But I didn't realize that Jeremy had stopped you. I thought that little episode had just made you a star in College Station.
In my own mind, dude.
Infamous.
In my own mind, yeah.
Infamous? Infamous?
It's more than famous.
Jeremy stopped me and was like, look, this guy is starting to write his own stuff and is playing out, and you should go talk. But we ended up playing I can't remember exactly what night, but every week or so at the Third Floor Cantina for that open mic thing.
Yeah, that was on Wednesday nights. I was working in Houston, And I had an office job. I was what was I doing? I was an accountant. And I was driving as soon as I got off work from Houston to College Station on Wednesdays and playing that thing. And it was the most fun thing I think I'd ever imagined, because I started late. I was probably 23 or so at that time. And
you're an old guy at that point.
Well, to play my first gig, and it wasn't even really a gig. It was just an open mic thing. But I was going in and playing it, and you would play with me oftentimes.
Yeah, it was a blast. And we wrote parts and ended up on records there. I mean,
we did.
It wasn't just kind of messing around. Like it was fun. That was a huge learning experience for me.
I would have to, roll back into work Thursday morning in the same clothes I was wearing, smelling, hoping my boss doesn't smell me. But yeah, that's really interesting. And I did that for about 6 months.
Yeah. You had, as I remember it, and stop me whenever I say something wrong. So you had that series of like open mics happening at College Station in Bryan at Third Floor Cantina. And then there was a group of dates. I don't think they were super regular, but they were at Fitzwillies on Northgate, and they would break in through the main PA to announce when food was ready inside. So you'd be in the middle of a song, and you'd just be playing your heart out or something, and Bob, in case is ready to come on right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
You made it.
Yeah. Nothing. Oh God, we were trying out all different kind of things back then, and just being. I think, there's that natural, you feel extremely self-conscious, when you're on stage, and people, you talk to musicians now, if you just tell a guitar player in a band, hey, go up there and just jam out in E for, 4 minutes. After 20 seconds, there's like, oh my God, no, what did people think I'm crazy? But there's that extreme self-consciousness, and so we were trying all kind of things at Fitzwillies to try to get over it. And a lot of it was silly. We were blowing this. We had this big I don't even know what kind of a animal horn that someone had flown in from Iceland. And we were playing that and singing just like filthy, dirty songs about. We had the penis song,
the Heisman song, Good Brown Gravy, and
we were trying, good brown gravy, and we would try all these just utterly ridiculous things, and trying to get, figure out how to kind of be on stage because it's a different thing, and then, Bill, your quesadillas are ready, and you have that going on. Fitzwillies, they were charging $2 a head to get in, and nobody really knew who we were, so it was mostly just our friends that were paying it.
Yeah.
But I can still remember the absolute disgust on people's faces when they were told they had to pay $2.
$2?
We never had to pay that open mic thing. Yeah, always show up to that too. So I remember once, and I'm just throwing this in because it's just a story that I love. It's not super career building in any way, shape, or form, so bear with me. But you're doing those things, and you'd gotten an apartment in College Station, kind of over near the highway across the street from the mall, if I remember. And you're sort of like, okay, I'm leaving my job. I'm going to come start trying to do this a little bit more for real. So two things. I went over once, and we were going to go play that open mic again, or a show that you had, and I said, I'm really nervous because I've sat through my entire accounting semester, and I have not yet tackled my semester project, like the one that was going to determine my whole grade, and I really don't think I can go play the show tonight. I think I've got to sit up all night at Denny's with coffee and try to figure this thing out. And you were like, give it to me. And I gave you this stack. It was like Billy's video or something. I gave you this stack. I was like, I don't know how to do this, and I'm going to fail this class, and my dad's going to throw me out of college.
I'm like, well, that's a 6. That's a 9. That's a 42. Turn around.
And I didn't know any of that. And you're like, here, give me that. And 10 minutes later, you're like, all right, you're
It was like it was one of those things where it was one problem, but it was like in 56 parts, and then the end. I was like, the answer is 712. All right, let's go do this thing.
Let's go do the show. And I got an A on my project in accounting, and that pretty much summed up college for me. And then the next one I remember is you hadn't gotten too much money because a lot of it was tip jar, and my dad was having a birthday at the house and was like, "Do you know anyone who'd like to come play music for their birthday party?" And he was like, "I want to pay him," and I was like, "I think we just got Roger's first paying gig," so we went and played a bunch of I don't know clean songs for my dad's birthday over at the house, and I think he got paid $100 for it or something.
Yeah, yeah, that was awesome. He had a piano in there. I remember
Yeah, he had
that.
a piano in the corner of the room, and you could actually play piano really well. And I don't think I'd realized that at the time because you weren't hauling a keyboard around to these gigs. Uh,
Well,
and so,
that was the first time I'd ever eaten brie cheese. Was that night?
so many things happened that
They had
night.
a whole table of like what do you call it, like charcuterie? I
Charcuterie
guess.
now, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a catchword these days.
Like, man, this stuff is awesome.
Well, it was
Yeah.
fun. I say all these things and tell all these fun stories to me to illustrate, like, you know, none of this is overnight. This was all just stuff we did to try to figure it out, and I learned an incredible amount. And I think we thought we'd learned enough to go record a demo. And I wasn't like in the band or anything. I was just sort of around what you were trying to do. You had a couple guys who were living in a place with Jeremy who could play, Scott Owen and a couple other guys, and you thought you had enough tunes to go in and do like a demo. And do you do you remember this guy we recorded with? Harry Ohanian.
Uh, well, say again.
Harry Ohanian. Do you remember this guy?
Oh, you was that his name?
Yeah, out at that trailer studio that he had, and oh gosh, it was right outside of town. Do you remember? You remember that?
Remember that he was a character.
Yeah, he was like Jimmy
Yeah.
the Greek almost. Like he had all these rings on. He looked kind of like
Yeah.
Ron Jeremy, and he had this just uh, makeshift recording studio built out in the woods, but it was cheap, right? So we went and did that demo out there, and you recorded a couple of the songs that you took to Lloyd, and the demo sounded like you can imagine.
Yeah. 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 The demo didn't sound great, and yeah, yeah, I do remember that. That was only the second time I'd ever been in a recording studio, and this time I came with Scott Owen, who Scott was just a bad to the bone guitar player, man.
Yeah, he really was.
Such a Yeah, and he was my roommate. He
Scotty
and Jeremy
Karate.
Elliott, Karate Scotty.
Yes,
Yeah,
right, man.
Yeah, y'all moved into that
yeah,
house kind of behind the tap area.
we did, which felt like we lived there for about 7 years, but I think we lived there for 1 year.
That was a fun house.
Yeah, we had rented it from a guy that he's got like 300 rental houses and rents them to college kids. And I mentioned that there was a foundation problem, and he was like, yeah, some of these houses they're foundation, whatever, it doesn't change the rent. I'm like, okay. And then by the time we moved out, it had separated. It was like tectonic plates moving away from each other. You get someone to look at that. Whatever, the rent's the same.
So, what's the connection between Jeremy Elliott and Matt Pivoto? Am I allowed to say that guy's
Uh,
name? Because I know it burns my mouth when I say Matt Pivoto. Does it burn you too still?
It hurts a little, yeah. Yeah.
Just a little? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, I don't know the connection between the two of them.
Okay.
Jeremy was my roommate, and later he went on to tour manage Jack Ingram for a few years.
Right.
That's right.
And it was all about that time that we were living together, and maybe a couple of years after he hoisted Brendan on his shoulders, during that thing. But Jeremy's a really funny guy. He's an engineer, and he had like a dry wit,
Mhm.
and I can remember him saying something to the effect of, after he was offered the job with Jack Ingram, saying something to the effect of, "Man, I am just, really, really impressed with how smart Jack is to hire me.
It shows an awful lot of smarts.
It shows a lot of potential there. Yeah. But Jeremy and I were just college buddies, and he has a ferocious love of music, and I was trying to break into it. And so at some point we became roommates, and then he tour managed Jack. I think Jack was still on MCA at the time.
Maybe even before. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe before. Was that with like Gus? Gus was playing bass for him.
Yeah, Gus. Yeah.
Is that all?
Chris Clarity, Gus Salmon, Salmon, and Pete Codename, as always.
Mm-hmm.
So that.
And then I met Pivito. I guess he was booking Corey Morrow at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, he was working with Corey.
I'm excited to hear about this guy. I'm just hearing like legends just about this. So
about Matt Pivito.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
I guarantee it was a rough chapter for everybody, including Matt. It was. He
basically went bankrupt, I guess. And
yeah, that's
he tried to bankrupt us also in doing.
Well, he very nearly did.
Who all was he working with at the time? I mean, for people that don't know, because it sounded like he like was touching a lot of different careers, right?
Yeah.
The problem was when he went bankrupt, he owed a lot of us money, and me the most, I'm sure. But it was Max Stalling and Blue October, I think, and
me.
Fowler was involved.
Honey
too.
Brown.
And Fowler, yeah, of course, yeah.
I think Fowler was involved.
It was about $35,000, and to a small band like Honey Brown, that was a lot of money. I mean, that was like basically I played, I think, October, November, and December for half the amount of money each gig paid because he kept the deposits. He got the deposits on all those gigs, and then when he funded one of the big festivals in Houston that crashed, he had to come up with some money, and he just like, well, I spent all your money. Yours too, Raj.
Guys, for the folks who don't know, what was he doing? Like he was booking, or
he was our booking agent.
Film festival.
He was a booking agent.
I think it was the whole thing was like Mustang Entertainment, right? I think it was
correct.
Is that it? And then he used that as a, and I'm not using this as a way to grind on Matt. I think the whole thing is interesting now to look back and go, look, this is a really tough business, and it's hard to make it. But some things you probably shouldn't do is take that deposit and use those deposits to fund other projects,
right?
Because those deposits need to stay as tied closely to the accounts that they're associated with as possible, because those bands are going to need that money to do any number of things later. Make a new record or stay on the road. Or
very probably illegal.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say that's probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called a.
Oh man, I know. We had a conversation, Roger. I think I called you about it, and I mean, you were just so hot, and I was so hot. I can't remember what was said, but it was on the lines of like motherfucker, God, every word we could throw out at talking about to associate Matt's name with, but he's back in this business, I think. So I'm looking forward to that.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. I don't care if he hears this or if anybody hears this, because I think it was the shadiest thing I've ever seen. So
Fred's
still hot.
Man, that came at a time. I think it was right before like the 2008, 2009. I mean, that's when the economy took a tank too. So it put everybody in a really pinch.
It had to have been before that.
Was it?
No, it was right about that time.
Was it?
It was right about that time.
2007, 2008. I don't know. Somewhere
I think it was 08, 09. And I had, he had called, you get these private shows, and the private shows they're not career building. They're not something that's going to propel your career to the next level or whatever, but there's somebody's 40th birthday or somebody's wedding or whatever. And so what we do, and y'all know this, but what we do in the music business is we say, all right, well, we will do that. This is not helpful to us. This is not something that's going to build our career. But what it will do, we're going to charge you at the maximum of our range. We're going to charge you the maximum of our range to play your uncle's 40th birthday, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do that. And so these things wind up being like these safe, big money gigs where you go, all right, well, the tour bus needs a new transmission. We can play. We've got 3 of these in October and whatever. So it kind of becomes this thing. Well, what he had been doing was calling the whoever we were playing these gigs for and demanding full payment, 100%. So then for the next year, I had, I don't know, a dozen shows or so where I had to go and play the show for free that he had already taken. He had already taken the money, which I did simply because I felt like if I didn't do that, it would reflect horribly on me.
It's always
it wasn't a grand gesture on my part. I just thought, it's going to kill me if I don't.
Yeah, your reputation alone. I mean, that's you couldn't come back from that if you didn't go play them. That's awful.
So those are the trials and tribulations as an established band, as a young band. I mean, you have to. There's an escrow fund where those deposits should go, and you should definitely keep tabs on that and make sure that you know where that money is. Because I didn't. I was just too busy trying to, keep the wheels on the road and keep the band together, rather than worry about finances, which is a big deal. You need to have a money manager of some sort.
Yeah, but here I am. Yeah, here I am, leaving an accounting job to go do this. So I'm actually an accountant. I crushed Billy's video. And
thank you again.
It took me, it was somewhere in the vicinity of $150,000, which was very, very bankrupted me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That's ironic. That's ironic as an accountant. You're looking around like, wait a minute.
He's like, well, the one good thing, it'll never happen to me.
Well, I do think it's good nowadays that so many of these stories get out, because it's not independent to y'all's scene. And, I came from the hip hop world, and that's extremely common where these promoters will come in and people have no idea what they're doing. And I think it's important especially for younger people in the industry to be like, you need to know what's going on with your business. You can't just unfortunately don't really trust anyone, especially to start.
I think the more worrisome ones are the ones who do know what they're doing.
Yeah,
yes,
that's true.
Yeah, for sure. In the hip hop industry, as in like the, there's all kinds of people. Everybody gets kickbacks in the hip hop industry. If I'm not correct. I mean, the sound guy, the manager, they all get. It gets nasty, does it not?
Oh man, I had guns pulled on me in Florida, and oh man, it's a. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pay my guys. Yeah. We're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that probably happens in Texas too. So
Never had a gun pulled on me.
Can I ask and you're a promoter, Fred, so good on you. So let me ask a couple questions, because you were right earlier. You made a promise that this would go to a dark and dangerous place, and true to your word. But I do want to know a little bit about you've made records that have tended to reflect your actual authentic experiences. You've just always done that. It's always been really fun to play your music, to record your music, because I'm playing Roger's life here, and there's some love songs mixed in that are really beautiful too. And then you've got these songs that are all about going to see the people you wanted to go see, the younger side of your recording. I've seen Jerry Jeff umpteen times this year, that kind of thing. It's been fun to record though. You took that demo that you made out at that trailer thing, to Lloyd, and that started off this kind of sound and recording style that you used for a while. Do you remember getting into the more professional side of making a record with them? Do you have any real solid memories of that?
That's dark and dirty.
No. I was talking about the story before that.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's nothing, Brendan. And I do, and being with Lloyd Maines in the recording studio that first time was the first time I ever felt like, okay, I'm in the presence of greatness here. This is the real deal. And there were times, particularly when I was singing vocals, where I was very nervous. And that's the one time you don't want to be nervous, is when you're singing vocals. You want to be cool, like Ray Charles, and just let it come out and be soulful and groovy. But yeah, working with Lloyd Maines, I credit that first record with, at the time that I started, what I was doing didn't exist. There was me and Corey and Pat, and we were all kind of doing something that didn't really exist. If you wanted to be a famous country singer, you needed to go to Nashville and get a record deal. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there was this little area of the world that we were carving out somewhere kind of in the middle. And I credit Lloyd Maines with that, because you have to have a great product. And Lloyd made that record. And I want to say the budget was $8,000.
Yeah, he would always just say, this is what it's going to cost. When I'm not doing points on this record, this is what it'll cost in and out. He's going to mix it, and you can have it mastered. So yeah, you make a great point. Like, all of us, guys in the scene that got to record with Lloyd probably have that same kind of story. A little bit nervous, taught us everything we know about being in the studio that would just get better and better, hopefully. But you really easily, and all of the guys you just mentioned, Pat and Corey, Jack to an extent, who'd done it a couple years prior for his first record, could have made that same demo that we made in that trailer in Brazos County and put that out as a record and said, this is who I am. And that would have been a really tough foot forward, but Lloyd gave people like y'all the capacity to make, without any experience at all, really make a really great product that would transfer, that people could get into, that you could be proud of, and you don't have to shelve even today,
Yeah, it sounds good on the radio still. I mean, that's a good recording, and Lloyd, held your hand and brought the best out of what you guys brought to that record.
Yeah, Roger's Project was the first time I ever recorded with Lloyd either, because you got that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it was my very first time in. I ended up doing a ton of work there with him, over the years, which was just one of the great joys of my young coming up, time. But that was the first time I'd gone in, and I remember him specifically going, and I do a bad Lloyd impression, but is this you on that demo? And I was like, yes, sir, that was me. He goes, we got to make that thing sound like a fiddle.
Oh,
oh no!
You have a tuner?
Yeah. Did you bring a tuner? Yeah, man. I can't do anything but echo what you just said. I'm a little bit nervous, but what an incredible experience that holds up. That's what's really cool about it.
Right.
Well, I'm for one thing, it's funny for me because I sound like I'm 14 years old when I listen to those old records. But the same thing can be said of all, even the greats. You listen to Merle Haggard's early stuff, and then after he's in his 40s and his voice sounds completely different. George Strait, something. But the quality and what we were doing, which by the way, we were not using Pro Tools back then. It was
That's
all
right. I'll tape.
But working with Lloyd, I would have had to have gone to Nashville if it wasn't for that.
Right.
And then I could have had what do you call, like a meteor? It burns hot and fast, like 90% of the Nashville careers. Here I am. I'm still doing it. We're still touring on the bus and playing, and 22 years later.
Well, let me say something that
I really think it's because of Lloyd helped me, help create that sound and create this niche. And I can remember somebody telling me that they heard one of my songs on the record and went and bought the record because specifically of that Texas sound.
Nice. Well, let me say something that, feel free to disagree with it, but it's my interpretation. So you made that sound with Lloyd's help. It was your stuff. You made it with Lloyd's help. And you've found a really interesting way. Like you said, you've made what you've wanted to make. You didn't have that meteoric rise that sometimes Nashville and the system can afford people. It can build great careers. It can build very short-lived careers too. If you do it right, you can build, or in the way that you've done it, you can build a lifelong, sustainable career by also leveraging, by taking that sound you've created here and by leveraging a lot of fantastic songwriting and professional relationships in Nashville, but getting to keep your feet planted somewhere that makes sense to you. That's my sort of interpretation of how you've come along this far in your career. You know, you write with great people. You write a lot on your own. You make records that make sense to you with people who make sense to you. You stay true to your sound. You have a lifestyle that makes sense to you, and you're not chasing something else. Does that sound fairly accurate?
That's exactly how I would put it on the brochure.
Nice.
Life by Roger.
Yeah, it's just incredible to watch because it's so tough to do what you want to do in this business, you know, and not deviate from it.
You know, honestly, I feel like that's a lot of it, but at the same time, it's, you know, it kind of feels like, oh man, look what they did. It looks kind of like we did it on purpose. And, you know, not necessarily. You know, there was a time a few years ago when we were really considering a major record deal, and we had, you know, there were 2 major record deals. I've turned down 4 in Nashville over my career. 2, I guess you'd call them like indie labels, and then 2 major labels. And it wasn't because I wanted to stay true to who I am and keep, you know, because of all the things that you just listed. It was because the deals were not very good. You know, if they had a deal, I would have taken it. I mean, I was there in the negotiating room with them. So yeah, if it had been a better deal, but it you know, it's worked out. You know, I came back and made a record. After all that went down, we came back and made Gulf Coast Time, and
A great record.
yeah. You know,
And you've gotten some really good people around you too that kind of understand that layout now. You know, I won't out Howie too much on this, but you know, having known Howie Edelman, your longtime buddy and kind of manager now for as long as I've known anyone in this kind of world, you know, he's made an incredible career now of cultivating relationships in power centers in Nashville with some of the biggest top decision makers out there, and he brings his artists along through that. You know, and the success stories, go look them up. You know, it's going pretty well. You know, but you know, 20 plus years ago, if a Texas artist like yourself had said, "I'm off, I'm going to Nashville, I'm going to chase a record deal, and I don't know what my sound's going to be like, but you'll hear me on the radio." You know, a lot of the Texas scene, the listening part of the Texas scene, would have turned their back on that. You know, that's not what they wanted from their standard bearers in this scene. You know, they wanted you to do what I perceive that you've done. Can you just share a little bit about how important you think it is? I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but how important you think it is to cultivate those kind of professional, you know, songwriting professional relationships in a place like Nashville for your career?
Well, songwriting, I mean, that's really kind of 2 different things. I mean, one of them is, you know, you're talking about, well, the backlash of getting a record deal and then getting called a sellout and all that crap. That's what, you know, 20 years ago, that was hot and heavy.
It was rampant.
You know? And I guess Corey Morrow never signed a big deal either, huh? I don't think he did.
But he was really vocal about it. Like I would say this to Corey, and you know, in a discussion like this, you know, Corey is
Nashville
really
sucks. Remember his
yeah.
yeah.
But
That's the way to get a deal.
That's the way to not get your first one. And I mean this with all due respect to Corey. We all lived through that with him. You know, he didn't get the kind of attention he thought Nashville maybe could have afforded him, and he decided to put that wall up. And it kind of caused this scene a little bit of misunderstanding in Nashville, because they heard that narrative, and people were kind of joyous about yelling it, you know, but they heard that kind of narrative and they used that to paint everybody in the scene, which wasn't true, really.
You kind of went with the whole, you know, Texas is a very prideful state, and they are
Sure.
prideful people, and so this was Texas music, and they, last thing they want to do is, have one of their icons like Mr. Roger Creager sell out. I mean, that's not what their fans wanted at all.
No, but what I think is important is when a Texas icon like Roger and others go, yeah, I totally understood fan base, but there are so many incredibly smart and business-minded and gifted songwriting minds in Nashville. I'm going to spend some time with that too.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there until about 4 years ago, we had all of it was in Nashville. Our publishing, the booking agent, the management, and the record distribute. All of it was in Nashville. And now we've kind of slowly brought all of it back to Texas. But I think the most important of those, at least for me, was the songwriting relationships, because there are tremendous songwriters in Nashville. And I still, all these years later, I'm still on the side of Corey, man. I still think Nashville sucks. I think it's about 40% awesome and 60% terrible, but the 60% terrible gets all the attention.
Gotcha.
And it's full of really nice people, and in fact, the vibe of Nashville and the overall personality of the city, to me, is almost indistinguishable from Austin. Now, that's someone who's never lived in Austin or Nashville, but visits both all the time, and it feels the same. It feels like a high art city, with a lot of artists and a lot of people that are passionate about music and painting, creating. And so for me to get up there and find the like the Alan Shamblin, he's a friend of mine and one of the greatest songwriters ever, I think.
Ever.
And Paul Overstreet, Radney Foster, and all these guys in Nashville that I've written songs with, and I come back. There was a song that I wrote that I had about, I don't know what percentage I had it done. 75% of the song was finished, and I took it to Paul Overstreet, and we were, and he loved it, and I was stuck. I had this for 3 years and worked on it and never could. And then Paul, in an afternoon, he and I finished the song, and I think, man, I wrote 75, he wrote 25, but holy moly, his 25 is like, wow. I mean, it made it. God dang. And that, it's just, somebody like that is just like a God-given talent. It just blows my mind. And Nashville's full of people like that. So yeah, I think you do need to go up. I think you do need to grow as a songwriter, and sitting in a room with guys like that are how you do it. So, but also, the temperature's changed. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think most of the young Texas guys, they all have deals in Nashville now.
Right.
Or most of them do. Many of them do.
That's true. And that's kind of a thread I'm trying to pull on a little bit, just to get, folks who may not be completely hip to that, an understanding of what that means, because that's been a shift over the last, call it 20 years, right? No need to get too cute about it, but let's call it like 20 years. The shift is complete now, where a songwriter and a would-be performer who's young in this state coming up doesn't have to go through those kind of gymnastics to get the deal sort of surreptitiously and write songs up there and then come back and present an image of complete homegrown whatever to Texas. It's open and transparent now. And I remember an example of a guy I truly admire, John Bauman, as a songwriter, writing a song and getting a Kenny Chesney cut. And, you put that on either end of the 20-year spectrum. 20 years ago, they throw him out the door in Texas. And now, like on social media, he posted, I got my first big cut. It was a Chesney cut. And people were just essentially embracing the guy, just so happy for him, that he got a cut through his songwriting. It's just completely shifted.
It has. And there was that, that stigma seems to be gone. I think it's gone.
Yeah, I think the closer and closer we get as, like you said, like industry centers that are kind of similar, you have a Nashville and Austin, right? And I'll expand that to Texas because, you come from Corpus and Houston and Parker comes from Conroe. Like we're all kind of an industry center unto ourselves, right? Texas is a big one. And then Nashville, and you continue to widen these lanes, and more people are doing more work together. BMI opens an office in Austin, and is in regular contact with Nashville, and people have a gateway and a through line there that's personal. The closer and closer we get as creative hubs, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I'm a little bit jealous of it because it wasn't like that when we were making our bones. But I am also proud of the fact that I was able to do something, and along with Pat Green and Corey Morrow and a few others, that really didn't exist.
Well, that's what you see, like, I think with like trailblazing, and when a scene, you guys were the ones that were like, figuring it out. And I think that as the scene, like as you see growth generally in like markets or scenes, that's when success starts to be okay. Because at the start, everybody's like, this is mine. Don't succeed. The second anyone succeeds, they're like, that guy sucks or that lady sucks. And I think the scene, you guys pioneered this, and now it's this huge scene. So success isn't a problem. It's more, now it's like a mark of pride, at least, just being a fan in the scene. I think that to me feels like some of what it is.
Man, I feel that pride. I feel so proud of what we were able to be a part of and help grow. And I swear, I wish that we had done it on purpose. We were smart enough to figure out what we were doing back then. No.
There was some big, in some room somewhere in Austin, there was some big whiteboard, and everybody just drew this whole plan up. That's how it went. That's how I remember it.
Yeah, you were in on that meeting, as I remember.
Oh yeah.
Hey, so Raj, let's go back to some songwriting stuff. You have this, we talked briefly to Randy Rogers last week, and I think both of y'all have this. He has more of a gravelly, honey sound, and you have this manly country voice. I mean, it is low. I can't even begin to try to sing songs as low as you do. I mean, you have a really low, awesome timbre to your voice. When did that change for you from like, was it 11, 12 when you went through puberty, just like the high voice, this big, low baritone sound?
I don't know. I can, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. I know that I had my tonsils taken out at age 10 or so, and my voice went up. When I was three, the one of my dad's work buddies called me Foghorn, something like that. I don't know if it was the Little Rascals or what. But,
so you've always had a pretty low voice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, because I've talked to your father, and he doesn't have the same voice you do. I mean, I just wonder if it's not genetic.
No, it's my mom. Her.
Your mom's good.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, she sounds like Barry White.
I remember playing with you, and Fred, I don't want to step on your section here, but when we first started playing, and you continue to do it now, you have this. Yeah, it's a big voice. It's a really big, confident voice, and you play piano extremely well too. So you have a style in which you play with this big voice, and you play country songs over acoustic guitar, and that's how you deliver it, on the records and live a lot of times. But when you go do your piano bar thing, that is a side of you that could be on Broadway. I've always told you that. Like, if you did the Billy Joel, musical on Broadway, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. If you came and told me that you'd gotten that booked, that wouldn't surprise me any way, shape, or form. And that surprised you, I could tell.
Bueller.
Are you talking to Fred or me?
I'm talking to you, Roger.
Oh,
I would never compliment Fred like that. Please know that.
No.
On to Broadway. On Broadway. Well, I don't know. We do around Christmas these years, the last several years, we do something I call a piano bar. And that's, you mentioned Billy Joel. I always kind of wanted my concerts to have that kind of energy, like that piano bar type energy. And this is the chance that I get to blow it all out. It's a little bit tough to do with it's not a little bit tough to do, but it's a little bit different when I'm doing all of my songs, 160 times a year, every night,
Right.
and you country song, and I love doing it, and that is actually my passion. But when we get up there and play, I would walk 500. They're these beer stein, they're sloshing around like drunken pirates. We do about 4 or 5 of those a year around Christmas time. And by the 5th one, we're like, thank God that's over, because it's on us. But it's a blast. And we play, we call it the piano bar. But
So where do you get? Where do you get your energy? Like your shows, what I learned when I first started watching you play, we opened up for you guys. I don't know how many times, because we had the same booking agent. We went on a couple East Coast tours together, had a blast. But what I got from watching your shows is just the energy, the performing. Where did you find the inspiration for your performances on stage? Because it's a big show. I mean, you're energetic. I mean, it's awesome. So where does it, tongue tied.
Honestly, I was so terrible at it. And God bless Brennan. It's funny. Like, you can never be cool to your high school friends because they remember when Brennan was there, and I had this standing Sunday gig at a barbecue place in Bryan called Buffalo Joe's. Is that right, Brendan?
Yeah,
Buffalo
I think
Joe's.
so. I blocked some of that.
Blocked it
And
out.
Brendan, he would come play afternoons with me oftentimes, and it's like stealing that old Ray Wiley Hubbard joke about the one guy after the 19th song, one guy clapping, and he's like, "Thank you, somebody gets it," and you look out and it's some dude with a ketchup bottle, and that's really how it felt, and I would try to say something, and you feel like you're dying. It's such a self-conscious thing, and I can remember telling a joke and nobody laughing, no response, no applause, nothing. And Brendan standing next to me, like leaning over and saying something smart ass in my ear. Now I'm laughing.
But I can't say exactly what I said, but I was there to cheer you on. I'll say that.
Oh, come on! This is where we open up here.
It actually worked because it got me laughing, but realizing that I sucked at it early. And it wasn't that I didn't have the drive and the thing. I was just too shy. And so I made it a very personal goal to get good at that, to get good at performing and getting crowds up and energetic. And, I want their hands up, and I want them singing, and I want them partying along with me. And that was a goal that I set very early. And, honestly, if we're, being role models for young kids, I suggest you drink a lot. That helps me.
Man, I remember because the great, just fun hangs playing with you. And it was just, what was fun about playing with you is, as self-conscious as you're saying now that you were, I didn't really come across until you turned around and looked at me, but you were good. I mean, there's no denying that you were really good at it. So the rest was going to come along. The more energy you put into it, the better it was going to be. Some other folks kind of had that too. Pat had charisma coming out of his ears, hadn't quite figured out everything yet, but it was going to go, he was like a kid who wouldn't study for the test and did okay on it, and Corey and even some of the younger guys. But I kind of made it I learned this with you at the open mics. Like, I kind of made it a general rule that I was going to be right there behind you as bad as it got. And not only would I be standing there, I wouldn't leave the stage. I'd have something to say to you. Like, like you'd say something, do something, and you'd turn around and look at me, and I'm just like, man, you killed him with that one. You just killed him. Like, they never expected that, dude. Keep it up. And it was like having Ed McMahon sitting next to Carson. Like, the joke went bad, and Ed's like, they're not paying us for that one.
Well, okay. On those notes, you know, the name of this podcast is "The Moment You Made It," and we each have a moment.
I'm glad you remembered that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And so, you know, in our eyes, the reason we have you on the show, Roger, is because we, you know, there's certain times that we through your career that we feel like you made it, and it can be stair stepped. It can be different times that you feel like you made it. But one of these for me is a funny one, and it may be a hearsay, maybe a legendary story. You were an accountant, so I heard that you were hanging out with, I think it was Corey Morrow, and he just maybe just got into a bus or just got out of a bus. I can't remember. And you're sitting around drinking with Corey, and he's like, "Man, I'm freaking paying for this bus and all these musicians and my road manager and my manager and my booking agent, and man, I'm just broke." And I think you looked at him and you go, "Really? I'm rich." And this is something I heard. This is years ago, and before you guys traveled on a bus, you know, I think you would pay your guys like, "Hey guys, you're being a smart businessman. You're like, we can take this van and I'll meet y'all there in my big ass truck, and I'll pay you this, or we can get a bus and I'll pay you this." You kind of gave your band an option, which I felt like your band is. I loved all your band members. They've always been great guys, great musicians. So is that a true story or not?
That is a true story. And Corey, Corey was, Corey was making a lot more money than I was. He was woo. He was the middleman. He was rolling. Anyone that remembers Corey Morrow 1.0, man,
Exactly.
He was a wild animal, and he was so much fun. And he's one of those guys that you can't help but just freaking love the dude. And I do now,
100%.
and I did then. And you don't, yeah. You say you don't?
No. I said 100%. I
don't.
Corey Moore 1.0, man. Don't answer the phone. Don't answer the door. Past 10.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, he did. He had a tour bus. He had a Porsche. And he had I think the glove box was full of cocaine, and he had
cocaine heavy,
100%.
So here I am driving a 1990 GMC stick shift. Like, he's like, "Really? You're poor? I'm rich." But and I didn't even have a bus. I bought an old van, but he called me one time. We played the radio station thing in Austin, where it used to be at Hills Cafe.
Yeah.
Momos,
series.
Mangoes.
Yeah, the music series thing. And it was over with at 10 o'clock. So I've got my duffel bag, and I'm walking into the Marriott down by the airport. And my telephone rings. I pull it out, and I see it's Corey Morrow. It's 10:15. I'm in my hotel room. It's like, oh God.
Don't answer.
So I can see it's Corey. So I think it was a flip phone. That's what I did. I don't know. It was a flip phone. Anyway, "Yo, what's up?" Corey says, "Where are you?" So I'm at the hotel. He says, "I already knew that. I'm right behind you." I turn around. There's a big limousine. And he's like, "Go put your stuff up and climb in." So we go. So I put my stuff up. I'm like, "Okay, Corey, first thing, where did you get the limousine?" He goes, "Oh, don't worry. This isn't mine. It's
Nobody owns a limousine, Corey. No.
it's from the strip club." So we're like, oh no. And there's like 7 guys in there. And, I've been playing a concert. They've been partying since Thursday. And so I get in, and we go to the strip club, which I hate strip clubs. I've always hated strip clubs. I feel I've never been able to afford them. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, because that's one of the reasons. Anyway, go ahead.
That's why you're rich.
Yeah.
So anyhow, we get to the strip club, and we're sitting in this big corner. And first off, we walk in, and it was like, can we tell stories on Corey Morrow on your podcast?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. This is Corey 1.0. And it's like Norm from Cheers. we get with this entourage, and they're like, "Corey, Corey, and here come all the girls and the manager, and they're high-fiving. And so he orders a bottle of Dom Perignon, which is the expensive champagne. And the guy's like, Corey, that's like $300, man. And Corey goes, in that case, we'll have 2 of them. And there's like 10 of us. And so I'm like, all right, well, this is already going crazy. And so I'm like, well, I need to go to the bathroom. I was going to go at the hotel, but I'll see y'all in 5 minutes. So I come back from the bathroom and they're gone. I was like, what? And I go to find the manager. I said, hey, where's Corey? He says, oh, man, he got in a big fight with one of his friends or one of the girls, somebody, I don't remember. They were yelling at each other and they all left. I said, he's my ride. Corey is my ride. I said, oh, well, don't worry about that. We'll get you a taxi and we'll call it for you. We'll get you back to your hotel. Don't worry about it. Anyway, here's your bill.
Oh,
Two bottles of Dom Perignon. You're like Mr. Underhill.
I told Corey Morrow that story about 10 years later, and he remembered it, but he didn't put it all together. He didn't realize that it happened, I guess. And he was, I said, you believe me, don't you? He's like, oh, I absolutely believe you. And then after I had told him that story, about 3 years later, we went up to Lubbock, and Josh Abbott was, riding the rocket and doing great. He took us to some bar where it wasn't a strip club, but it was VIP. And basically he did the exact same thing to me and Corey.
No, it's in the blood, man. They just pass it along.
Pay it forward.
Pay it forward, dude. Learning from the best. I love
Don't
that.
pay it forward.
Don't pay it forward. Or at
I
all.
learned it from you, Dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Man, I love Corey. Y'all are making me want to go see him now. I'm going to go play golf with him.
Oh, he's awesome.
He's doing great. And yeah, the very important distinction is there is, thank God, a Corey
2.0.
2.0.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because Corey 1.0's operating system would have passed a long time ago, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been writing songs about him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Glad to have him around as 2.0. It's just a great hang. You're not going to find a better family man or a friend than that guy.
That's true. Did I tell you how I met Ryan Bingham?
No. You can, but you haven't.
Are these things timed? Are we? What are we looking at here?
This is your time.
It's been your time.
Okay. Yeah. So Ryan Bingham, he had been living on Matt Medeiros' couch, like for
Former drummer.
Matt Medeiros was my drummer. Yeah, and he had this house out in the country in Bryan. And Bingham was kind of just like couch surfing there for about 6 months or so, and he was trying to break into the scene and making all the right friends and in the right circles and stuff. But it hadn't taken off for him, and he was getting little gigs here and there, but he wasn't making enough money to like get a condo or nothing. So he was crashing on couches and whatnot. And he was young and enjoying it. And so we were playing some big festival out in one of the lakes around Austin. And it was an all-day thing. And we got there, and it was Corey Morrow and Pat Green and us and Cross Canadian Ragweed and the Lost Trailers. And
Oh yeah, the Lost Trailers.
it was a bunch of us. And I think me and Corey and Pat played late at night. And so here we are in the middle of the day, and it felt like just hundreds of boats. And they've made this like a horseshoe design where the one boat ties to the other boat out in the water. And they're playing the stages on land, and there's, thousands of people here and then another big group out in the water. And Corey and I were backstage, and we could see in the center of this thing was this big boat. It was like a houseboat with a slide and a diving board and 25 college kids, and they're partying. And Corey says, man, we need to go out and party on that boat. I said, man, that's a great idea.
1.0.
Yeah. So we don't play for like 5-6 more hours. So he says, well, how in the world are we going to get out there? I don't know. About that time, Matt Medeiros comes walking up with Bingham, who neither one of us had ever met. And hey, this is Ryan Bingham. I'm like, oh, hey, man, it's nice to meet you. You know, Corey and I both we've been hearing your name a lot and hearing your, trying to get things going and things are beginning to, the ground underneath you is beginning to move a little bit. And, oh yeah. He says, what are y'all doing? He says, man, we're trying to figure out how we can get out on that big houseboat out there. We want to go party with those guys. And Bingham says, oh, that's no trouble at all. He says, just meet me at the end of the dock. I'll pick you up in my boat. I'm like, well, all right. So Matt it was just Bingham and me and Corey. And so we come out to the boat, and sure enough, a little bay boat looking thing. And we get on, and Bingham, we pull up to this boat. He hollers back, hey, we got Corey Morrow and Roger Creager. Can they come party on your boat with you for a while? Like, yeah, come on. Like, well, Bingham, just tie off the boat and come party with us. And Bingham, he says, man, I really can't do that. I don't know who this boat belongs to.
The one he took you out on.
Yeah, he had stolen.
Man, that's no
He borrowed the boat. Yeah.
I stood behind him, no kidding, one night at the Tap when he was playing one of his first of many kind of his play your own songs kind of gigs. And, the Tap was a really fun place and, could be very forgiving of people starting out. But some guy was rowdy and making fun of Ryan's giant palm hat he used to wear. That's as big as the screen. And I was standing there. I can't remember who else was in the round, but I was kind of playing fiddle with all of them, how I used to do, obnoxiously so. And he goes, Matt, he looked back and goes, who is this guy? I was like, I don't know, dude. And he was like, I've had enough of this guy. So
was this guy on stage?
No, the guy was sitting down kind of in front, in
the audience.
And Ryan's playing, and finally he goes, that's it. I've had enough. He takes his hat off and dives off the stage into the crowd to meet this guy. I've held a special place in my heart for Bingham ever since. That guy's one of a kind. Man, stealing boats.
He does not care about anything. First time, I guess, we're sharing first meet. I think this is up in Steamboat. And like Doug Moreland and the guy from Blue October, Justin, and myself were sitting around, and Ryan Bingham and Doug Moreland walk up, and Doug introduced everybody, and I said, hey, nice to meet you. And he goes, I'm Fred. He goes, I don't give a shit. Like, I didn't give my resume. I just, hey, I'm Fred. He goes, yeah, I don't give a shit. That was it. That's how I met Ryan.
Yeah, but you can't help but just love him, though. It's not like
he's exactly what you see is what you get. Hey, I want to share something with you, and I want to, kind of get you on with your day. I don't want to jam you up. I would do this all day long and have with you several times. Story time. I love it. So many great memories playing with you and bumping into you over the years as you've built this incredible thing. I think, as Fred said, the name of the podcast is Moment You Made It. And, I've had some realizations about friends of ours who've started in this scene, and the light bulb's gone off for me that, hey, this guy figured it out. Yes, they've had this successful music career. Yeah, they've garnered thousands and thousands of fans and sold a bunch of records and have set things up the way they want to. But, my moments with those people are usually not the first time I saw them play in front of a huge crowd, because I always kind of felt I knew you were going to end up doing that one day. So when you did it, it just made sense to me when I first saw you in front of a huge crowd. But my moment, you were like, you decided to play X number of shows a year. You decided to have the boat, the fishing boat, and you're like, this is it. This is kind of what I'm doing. And I was like, well, what are you doing next week? And you're like, I'm gonna go run with the bulls in Pamplona. And then you ended up doing it like every year for I don't know how many years now you've done it, but you'd always come back with these amazing stories of these folks you'd met when you went and did things like that. And just for people who don't know, I thought, I was like, Roger's really made it. He's figured this out because he's going to play the shows he wants to play. He's going to play the music he wants to play with the guys he wants to play with. And then the rest of the time is going to be devoted to whatever else you fill it in with. And it's always really cool, interesting, fun stuff. I mean, I got to hand it to you.
Well, for me, that's what it is. It's interesting, fun stuff. And people get this idea that I'm some kind of like adrenaline junkie. you know, that I want to go bungee jumping and skydiving, and that scares the hell out of me. I don't want to do that. You know, I think adrenaline junkies, they want to drive a Lamborghini and go. I have a F-250, but I've got this group of friends that we go to Spain every summer, and we go to Pamplona and for the running of the bulls. And I think I'm done running with the bulls, by the way. I've done
You've done it
a lot, but I feel like at some point you're playing with the numbers here. You know, you're just tempting fate. But I'd still want to go to the party every year. I want to go to Spain every summer for the rest of my life. That's, cheers.
Absolutely.
But it's an interesting thing. It's something that I read about, and people are gonna have a hard time with the bullfighting part. But it's, I don't know if you can see him behind me. I've got my Ernest Hemingway thing. It's, I climb Mount Kilimanjaro too, and I like to go fishing, but for me it's not thrill seeking and adrenaline. It's just I like to keep myself focused and interested in life.
Yeah, it's just amazing to see, to watch. And again, it's not surprising to me. You've been this way since I met you. That there's going to be a means to an end, and you're really going to love the means. And the means for you is playing that music and having that energy for all your fans and making that art and those records. But the end is almost as important, if not more important, than the means. And it's been great to see. That's a philosophy that, it's amazing.
I used to justify that kind of like, if you remember there for a while, we had airplanes and we were flying to all of our gigs. And, and I'm a pilot, and we had another 2 pilots in the band, and we would fly our planes to the gigs. And that was another one of those things that just kept me, focused, because you can literally go brain dead on the tour if you let yourself, because there's nothing 100%. To do. Yeah. And but I justified, going skiing, for a week every whatever, and then climbing Kilimanjaro and running with the bulls and swimming with the dolphins and all that stuff. I justified it as, that will somehow find its way into my music, and then I can, I can offer that to the world. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it's fun.
And you're an accountant, you can write the trip off now because you wrote a song about it, right?
Yeah, well, if you work on the trip every day, then
it's a work trip.
Yeah,
love it, man. I love it.
Well, do you have a moment where you felt like, hey, I can do this long term, or this is what I'm meant to do, and I can sustain myself? Like the moment you felt like you made it in this scene? Or
I don't know that I did. And I still to this day sometimes, like, I'll have a dream and wake up in a cold sweat and go, oh God, when am I going to get a real job? And and then and worry about stuff. But in the growth for me, as we were starting at the absolute bottom, which, by the way, I do recommend starting at the bottom. That's another thing that Nashville, their bottom isn't the bottom. Once you get a record deal, I guess that's step one. But
that's a good point.
I recommend starting at the bottom for one reason. All the dumb stuff that we did at Fitzwillies, there were 30 people there. We got to make our most mistakes in front of very small crowds. And I was enthusiastically making those mistakes.
Very enthusiastically. I think there's a big idea, especially if you go to Nashville and get a deal. And I'm not casting aspersions at that. That's a lifelong dream for a lot of folks. But they really want you to come out of that deal in your first record and your first performances, batteries included. I mean, they do not have time for you to figure it out as much. Right. A developmental deal may do that for you, but precious few people get those anymore. And what we were doing back in the late 90s, mid 90s, figuring it out is priceless education time. And I'm really grateful that I got to do that, alongside you and the other folks that I ended up meeting back during that time, coming out a fully fleshed batteries included musician or singer-songwriter performer, it just doesn't really happen. And getting to do it enthusiastically, like you said, during that time is just, I mean, I'm so grateful for that time and all the stories and memories that I've still got from it. And, you know, I think people ought to understand that, you know, you've made, you know, people going to access you now. They can learn about you now for the first time and see a fully fleshed out, you know, lifestyle, authentic lifestyle kind of based singer songwriter doing his thing really well. But you've worked really hard on it, and you've been doing it for a long time, and that's a career anyone can really aspire to, man. And you know, I just want to, on behalf of, you know, Fred and Nick, like, I really just want to thank you for spending this much time with us to talk through those things. I loved it, man. I think your story's fascinating, and it's always fun to catch up like this.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, man. And you know, I will say this, you know, just since the name of the thing is the moment I made it, I never had that. I never had that moment. You know, I started at Buffalo Joe's, you know, that was like the first paying gig, I think, and you were there, man, you were there. And, you know, it was one little half a step at a time. I never had a big smash jump, you know, a smash hit or, you know, overnight success, none of that. It was always one little step at a time. And so for me, I never had to like swallow a lot of success all at once. It just, it was so incremental that it never felt like anything. You know, one day I just kind of looked around and went, man, I'm buying a house and I'm, you know, and yeah.
Well, I think it's been really fun to be a part of. I know it has. And man, I love talking to you. Give your best to your dad. I love that guy too.
I'll do it.
Hope he's doing great, man. He's just such a treat. And man, I love you. Miss you. Hope to see you soon out on the touring scene when that comes back.
Absolutely.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate the time, man. That was
Thank
fun.
you guys, man.
Great to see you, Roger.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it, boys.
See you, man.
Thanks so much for tuning in to The Moment You Made It. Got a question, comment, or great idea for an upcoming guest? Let us know. Shoot us a note at hello@momentyoumadeit.com. That's hello@momentyoumadeit.com. Thanks for tuning in, and see y'all next week.